Here's the problem. If we have each and every single day, we have 90% of America's heroin coming across that border every single day. And on top of that, now fentanyl, which is killing so many, now that's coming across the border, despite all the deaths, all the warnings, all of the, how many more statistics? Are we numb to statistics when you're talking about 300 people a week? Are we that cold that, we don't think, well, it's only 300? I mean, well, it's not me, it's somebody else. Okay, let's think of one of the 300. Let's think of their families. Okay, here's the call. Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, I'm sorry to tell you, or maybe they come to the door. We have some very tragic news to tell you that your Johnny, Susie, Marie, Tom we found them and they're deceased. What happened? Drug overdose. 90% of that heroin comes right across the border. Now, that happens to 300 families a week. Okay, that happens tens of thousands of times a year. 90% of heroin comes across the border. Fentanyl now is coming across our southern border. I even have Obama officials. They didn't focus on fentanyl. It's burning its way across America. And that's a headline from the Washington Post when Obama's president. And they talk about firefighters responding. 28-year-old man overdosed October 16th in New Hampshire, one of the states hit hardest by the country's fentanyl crisis. Despite mounting deaths and warnings, the Obama administration did not take extraordinary measures to confront an extraordinary crisis, experts say. May of 2016, small group national health experts issued an urgent plea in a private letter to high-level officials in the Obama administration. Thousands of people were dying from overdoses from fentanyl, and the deadliest drug ever to hit the United States. And the administration needed to take immediate action. Epidemic had been escalating for 3 years, it says. Now, again, this is before Trump ever becomes president. 11 experts pressed the officials to declare fentanyl a national public health emergency and that they would put laser-like focus on combating this emerging epidemic and warn the country about the threat. Quote, the fentanyl crisis represents an extraordinary public health challenge, requires an extraordinary public health response, the experts wrote to 6 Obama administration officials, including at the time the nation's drug czar and the chief of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The administration considered the request, didn't do a thing. Thought liberals cared about people. They're being warned to doing nothing for 3 years. Donald Trump, we secure the border. Those borders are secure. That the heroin doesn't come in these kind of numbers. They're going to have to find other ways. Criminals can be very clever, but we got to stay ahead of them in every way. And that's the problem. Then I'm going to add this. In a 2-year period, 4,000 homicides. 2-year period, 30,000 sexual assaults. In a 2-year period, 100,000 violent assaults by criminal aliens against Americans. And again, it's the 2%, not the 98% that want a better life. Anyway, joining us is Derek Maltz. He is a former DEA special agent in charge of Special Operations Division. And about whether, when you look at the cartels, Derek, and you look at the fentanyl, the heroin, and the gang members, and then you look at some of the violent criminals that mix in with the people that just want a better life and opportunity that we have, and they're just not respecting our laws in the process. And I'm thinking, how many more people have to die before people say, you know what, that's way too many? What do you think?
Right, Sean, first of all, I have very strong opinions about this because I lived this nightmare back in the Obama administration as the head of the agency. My people briefed President Obama's attorney general. And obviously it wasn't that important because there was no sense of urgency. And now we see the crisis, and now President Trump has inherited this dysfunctional mess. Bottom line is, Sean, 1 kilogram of fentanyl can kill 500,000 people. You know the statistics, and I agree. It's like after a while, you can't even talk about it anymore. That Border Patrol seizure of the 115 kilos of fentanyl, right? That could kill 57 million people, right? And you look at the amounts of people that can die. What people don't realize is these kids today, they're taking this stuff and they're snorting cocaine. It's inside the other drugs. It's not just heroin, right? And it's coming through the southwest border. Yeah, there's stuff coming from China, but we have this dangerous Chinese-Mexican cartel relationship, Sean, as well. And we need to be way more aggressive. Look at this poor lady, Bambi Lawson, yesterday, right? You know, we heard about it in the news yesterday. This undocumented alien, you know, he's in and out of the country, and they file ICE detainer 7 times, but they let the guy out. Then he butchers this lady with a 7-inch knife. So we have a big problem here. This is not only a national emergency, it's a national health crisis, it's a national humanitarian crisis. And I'm sick and tired of people trying to spin it that America doesn't want immigration. America loves immigration, but legal immigration, Sean.
The big scam of the whole address was that there's a crisis. There's not a crisis.
911, what is the address? Murray Hill, West Broad Street. Somebody's ODing in a red car. What is he overdosing on? I think heroin. My neighbor and her sister both overdosed on heroin.
The victim appeared to have been executed and left in the street. We were able to identify a group of MS-13 gang members who we believe are responsible.
Tommy Vladim Alvarado Ventura is accused of stabbing 2 women and sexually assaulting a 2-year-old girl.
We saw from Trump today the typical lying, the nonsense, the spinning of crises out of whole cloth.
MS-13 gang members were rounded up this morning charged in 3 murders. 16-year-old Kayla Cuevas and her 15-year-old best friend Nisa Mickens brutally beaten to death.
America's overdose crisis is worse than ever before because of the synthetic opioid fentanyl. It is deadlier than heroin.
Overdose deaths have almost doubled from this time last year.
The synthetic opioid fentanyl is causing carnage like America has never seen.
Overdoses are now the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50.
Start out with this idea of crisis. The president used that word several times in the speech.
Just because you say it's a crisis, George, doesn't necessarily make it one.
As we continue with Derek Maltz, former DEA agent in charge of Special Operations Division, and about whether this is a manufactured crisis at the border. But the fact that all these people keep saying manufactured crisis, well, that's not what Obama officials were hearing directly, you know, for 3 years prior to Donald Trump ever becoming president. You know, think back in the second term of Obama, all the Democrats, they wanted to fund and build the wall. But now that because he wants to do it, now they're immoral. And now we've got Democratic candidates going so extreme, they want to tear down the walls we have, which means we'd have wide open borders and anybody could walk across pretty much any time they wanted. And I think that's extraordinarily dangerous.
And Sean, look at this guy, you know, that did the murder. He's from El Salvador. You know, MS-13, their motto is rape, kill, control. They're chopping up people with machetes in this country. I mean, it's amazing that people just don't wake up. Put the politics aside, Sean. This is really just about the security of our country. And it's a shame that the politicians, they won't even listen to the experts. DHS secretary goes in to give them a professional briefing, which is her job, on the state of the border. They dismiss her. Within 2 minutes, they don't even want to hear her. And then you have these people, they go down to the border, and they hear from the Tom Holmans of the world, the Brandon Judds, the Mark Morgans. These guys were experts at the border, and they still dismiss them. Like, so who are they listening to? AOC or somebody like that, Sean? I mean, really?
Well, it's not just her. Listen to Beto. Listen to Kamala. Listen to Elizabeth Warren. Listen to Bernie Sanders. I mean, I don't think any of them have the understanding that we need to secure the borders and we need to do the right thing.
Well, Sean, what I like to say is that thank God the president cares about the security of our country and the people, and he's standing up strong because this is what we need. We need to have that wall. It's not going to solve every problem on the border, but it's going to help the Border Patrol manage their resources. They can get great technology, great screening equipment. They put their manpower at the funnel where all these people are going to come in. We want to create one option for these people. And if they come through the point of entry, at least we have a better shot at finding the drugs, finding out the background of these characters. But right now, they're walking over the border. Sean, do you know about the cases in Atlanta? This is something that nobody's talking about. There's a methamphetamine lab that they hit about a month ago in Atlanta, the DEA. And the meth lab was one of the largest labs in over 20 years. 400 pounds of liquid meth, and meth was seized. But here's the deal. The guys that were arrested, 6 out of 7 were illegal, right? They were all illegal. And here's all for the Democrats. I don't hear them yelling that 1 pound of meth can create, actually this particular seizure, they said, could create 2,000 pounds of toxic waste in our community. But nobody's talking about that. And then the case they did 2 weeks ago in Atlanta division of DEA, they had most of the people arrested on this Sinaloa cartel case. They were all illegally here because they're walking over the border They're not going through the point of entry. They're walking over the border, coming to set up as cell heads are operating all over our country. They're actually the ones that are doing the day-to-day work. And that's the thing. They don't realize it.
Well, they're not talking to the rank and file, and they don't want to talk to them, just like they didn't want to talk to angel families. Listen, Derek, I appreciate your time so much. What you're doing is phenomenal, and I'm glad you're telling the truth, and I wish the Democrats would listen to you and the families that lose people. That's who we should be listening to.